see. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a mystery. Why me? But
Okay. Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is part of the Tacoma Park Sustainability Series. It's an event titled Beauty, Biodiversity, Resilience, Creating a Climate-Smart Garden with Native Plants. My name is Allegra Cangellosi, and I'm representing the Tacoma Park Sustainability Committee, known as the Green Team, which is advisory to the Tacoma Park City Council and the organizer of this event. This event is being broadcast on Tacoma Park City TV, and we have two amazing speakers today. Our main speaker is Lisa Cooter, a statewide native plants and landscapes specialist at the University of Maryland Extension. She'll describe essential design features and planting strategies for naturalistic lawns and gardens, or wildscapes. These wildscapes will strengthen our community's resilience to drought, flooding, and shifting seasonal patterns, among many other benefits. Suffice it to say, they are something all residents, property owners or not, humans or not, need and will benefit from. Ms. Cooter's remarks will be followed by comments from Liz Kleemeyer, the organizer of Friends of Native Trees in Tacoma, or FONT, a very active and important local group in this arena. After the talks, both speakers will have native plant resources to share with us. The event will run about an hour plus time for discussion, so there will be a question and answer period at the end, up to 9 p.m. As noted, it was organized by the Tacoma Park Green Team, and some of our committee members are present. Could the Green Team members raise their hands? Okay. Please feel free to approach these creative, dedicated souls after the event for more information about our activities and any ideas you may have for future series topics. And of course, we would not be here without the city's expert technical staff who made this event happen. John, Bien, Marissa, among others, I'm sure. Thank you so much. Without further ado, let's begin. And we will start with Lisa.
Thank you. I guess it seems like this is working right. Wow, I have to say thank you to the tech team. Yeah, you guys are fantastic. Okay, wonderful. And I have a clicker too. That's wonderful. Okay. Thank you very much for having me here this evening. I'm really proud to be a part of your sustainability speaker series. And I have to say, I'm coming from Newmarket, Maryland, which is near Frederick. And as I was driving here tonight, I just kept admiring and thinking, this is beautiful here. All the trees you have, lots of native vegetation. It's just really gorgeous here. So I can see why you want to protect this beautiful space that you have. Okay, let me just practice here. I did not get a chance to check the clicker. There we go. Yes. All right, thank you. So with all University of Maryland programming, we have 2 required slides. So I just wanted to first mention that in compliance with federal regulations, all university presentations, any type of programming we put on is meant for all protected classes. And so again, welcome. We're glad that everyone's here. And this is our second required slide. And basically this is if in any way you feel that your civil rights were not met by extension programming, you have the right to contact. We welcome you to please contact the USDA. You can file a complaint there. So we need to let folks know that is an option. But hopefully, if you do need any accommodations, please let me know. I am happy to do whatever I can. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes. Wonderful, thank you. So I wanted to start off really to kind of set the stage with 3 stats. Just to, again, kind of set the stage not only for tonight's talk, but probably for your future speaker, your sustainability speaker series. So this is kind of just a snapshot of the state of Maryland and some of the land use trends starting in 1973. So I was 3 years old with that first map there. And you can see back in 1970, only about 10% of the state was developed. Go forward about 40 years to 2010, and a little over a quarter of the state is developed. And you can see Montgomery County, where we are tonight, is pretty red, and the red is what signifies developed. And we're expecting even more development in future. A 2024 report by the Maryland State Planning Commission is projecting that by 2050, we are going to have another 1 million people moving to Maryland, and that will result in about another 6% of the total land area will become developed. So by 2050, we'll have about a third of the state will be developed. And as you can see in the map from 2010, it's primarily central Maryland, so the Piedmont ecoregion, and also the coastal plain is becoming pretty developed. And that's the area that's probably going to be a major focus in the future. So what this kind of really, I think why it sets the stage for tonight's talk is because it really kind of, gets us to think that, okay, we see our natural landscapes are contracting and developed landscapes are definitely growing. And that's going to have huge impacts on vegetation, habitats, ecosystem services, and of course, sustainability. Here's the second stat to kind of set the stage. The state of Maryland, like you see in most of the Northeast and the central US, is privately owned versus the West, which a lot of land is owned by the Bureau of Land Management, so federal lands. We're kind of unique over here in the Northeast and also central US in that over 91% of the state of Maryland is privately owned. So why that's important is because it's really private landowners who are really kind of shaping current ecosystems as well as future ecosystems, because it's private landowners who are deciding what kind of vegetation is going to go on their land and how they're going to manage those landscapes. Sorry. Here's our third and final stat to set the stage. Many people are surprised to learn that the majority of plants that are purchased in the US and in Maryland are non-native plants. This data is from the Horticultural Research Institute. Every 5 years they do a survey and they try to get at, okay, what are people buying? What kind of plants are people buying? And so actually in the Northeast, we're kind of a native plant hub. In the US, it's even lower than this. It's about 1 in every 10 plants sold is a native plant. In Maryland, we kind of have a higher number where every 2 plants out of 10 is a native plant. But that's kind of astounding, isn't it? To think all of these plants that we're buying, the majority of them are from other parts of the world. They are not from here. And so in a few minutes, we'll talk about why that matters. So just quick raise a hand so I can know the audience a little bit. Who of you are already native plant gardeners? Oh my goodness, okay. I am speaking to the choir here basically, all right. Okay, so, and I know I was speaking with a gentleman right here before the meeting began, and you mentioned Doug Tallamy. Do we have any other Doug Tallamy fans in the room? Yes, probably not, okay. So we'll just talk just a few minutes about why native plants are so important and why we use those stats to kind of set the stage and thinking about, why our choices, our plant choices, and how we manage our landscapes really matter. And that's really because native plants are the foundation of healthy food webs. And we have an abundance of literature that points to birds, roughly 96% of terrestrial bird species in the US, they rely on soft-bodied insects to feed their nestlings, primarily caterpillars. And those caterpillars, they are relying on leaves. they're making the holes in our leaves. And sometimes we're dismayed when we see those holes, but that's actually a good sign. When we see holes in our leaves, that means the plants are doing what they should be doing. They're supporting ecosystems. And it turns out, even though leaves kind of all look the same to us in a sense, they're green, they feel kind of similar, they all have very different chemical profiles. And so insects like caterpillars that require leaves, they've co-evolved, and they've co-evolved with certain chemical profiles. And so that's why the plants that we have in the landscape really matter. And so research is also starting to show that non-native plants, so the 8 out of 10 plants purchased in Maryland that fall into this category, while they offer some services. They can still clean the air and help filter water, etc. But as far as supporting food webs, unfortunately, they fall short. They tend to actually disrupt food webs. And that's what this pyramid here is showing. We can see, plants are that foundation of food webs. And that jagged line is really showing how when we have non-native plants in the landscape, insects, they haven't co-evolved with those chemicals, and generally they're not able to use those plants, or not as effectively. And so that just kind of has a ripple effect. If we are not able to support insects, we're not able to support as many birds, we're not able to support as many foxes and other organisms that are an important part of the food chain. And this really is just kind of in addition to all of the other changes that we're making in the landscape. So, fragmentation, climate change, all these other things. So this is just kind of one more layer of difficulty that we're adding to ecosystems by introducing non-native plants. And so, how many native plants do we need? This was a study done by one of Doug Tallamy's students a while back, a local study performed in DC gardens. So it's very relevant to us here because we're not too far from DC. And what they wanted to look at was your common yards to see if they had a gradient of native plants. How well did they support insects and birds? And they really wanted to make that connection between plants, insects, and birds. And what they found with this gradient is that the higher the percentage of natives, the more caterpillars as well as the more spiders were supported, and then the higher the fledgling success of chickadees. And the chickadees is just one species, but it's a really common bird that we see in our yards, right? And so it's kind of it's a good model to also kind of give us an idea of how other birds would be supported. And so you might be thinking, I don't like spiders. I don't like spiders on me either, but it turns out that birds, baby birds in particular, they really need spiders. They have chemicals in them that support brain development in birds. So all these little soft-bodied insects are really important, again, for the fledgling success. And so what they found in their research is that you don't have to have 100% native species for robust food webs, but you do need to have at least 70%. So if we can get to that 70% mark in our yards, in our parks, our churches, wherever, we can still support robust food webs. So I think this is encouraging, especially for folks who are kind of new to gardening, or the gentleman I spoke with earlier today. Sometimes when we move into a place, the yard has a lot of exotic plants, and they're beautiful, but maybe we want to support more wildlife, and we're thinking, oh, that's a lot of work I have to do. I'm going to have to replace a lot of these plants. But you can do it slowly, and you can do it as you can, and just try to, if you can, get to that 70%, and try to focus on those invasives that tend to be especially problematic. So another quick snapshot is, well, how many native plants do we have in Maryland? We're talking about, they're so important. We have even though we're a small state, we have a lot of diversity, in part because we have these 3 really distinct ecoregions, and they just support some really unique plants. And so we have over 2,900 established plant species in the state of Maryland, of which about 2/3 or 2,000 of those plants are considered native to Maryland. And then the other roughly 800 or so are considered non-native. And then a subset of those non-native plants, about 300 or a tenth of the established species, are invasive. So we do have a lot of invasives in the Piedmont, in part because we're kind of in that intersection where north and south where it meets, and we can support a lot of plants. A lot of plants really thrive here. So we talked a little bit about why natives are important as far as food webs go. How else are natives important? One way is, thinking about their dynamic roots. And this whole series is about sustainability, right? And one of the things, when we talk about sustainability is we want to think about water quality, conserving soil. Native plants are an excellent option for this. Non-natives can also have deep roots. It's not to say that they can't have deep roots. They do. But our native plants, especially when you compare them to turf grass, which is really common, they have much deeper roots. And why are those roots so important? They are, especially the perennials, those roots, they dig down into the ground. They're, for one thing, a lot of times very deep, but a certain percentage of those die back each year, and then they regrow the following year. And so they're creating channels as they do that, and so it increases water infiltration, helps groundwater to recharge. So the roots, everything that's going on below the ground, is really important in sustainability. Another reason, native plants I think are really important is because they give us a sense of place. And I don't know if you feel this way, but I know when I was younger, I kind of felt like, as I drove across the US, I felt like each area just felt like it was kind of unique, right? Each city had its own feel to it, but it's like places are kind of becoming homogenized over time. And I don't know if you've noticed that too. It's not just like in the shopping malls where you see the same stores every single shopping mall, but it's also the plants that we see. Plants, especially from the horticultural trade, we tend to see the same plants used everywhere. And so it's kind of becoming homogenized. But plants really do give a sense of place. And you can probably think of some obvious examples, like if I were to say cactus, what area would you think of? Southwest, yes. Or palm trees, you might think California or, somewhere like that. So, it's plants, and those are extreme examples, mind you. But even here, this is the Eastern Shore. Even in Maryland, we have plants that, that set Maryland apart, and that kind of give Maryland a unique feel and flavor, in part because it supports unique wildlife. So since we know native plants are really important, how can we incorporate more into our landscapes? How can we really move the needle? We've been talking about native plants as growing. I'd say the native plant movement is gaining steam, if you will. How do we continue to move that needle? Okay, well, there we go. Oh, now I'm going twice. There we go. So tonight we'll kind of focus on a low-hanging fruit. Although I have to say, as I was driving here, I was pleasantly surprised at how little grass there is. And I don't know if all of Tacoma Park is that way, but there is just that, the creek and all the trees, and I saw very little turf, and I thought, wow, how refreshing. But in many parts of Maryland, and maybe parts of Tacoma Park as well, there's a lot of turf grass. Is that the case in Tacoma Park? In some places, okay. All right, in some places, but other places of Maryland and throughout the state or beyond that do have a lot of turf grass. And so this is I think of it as like a low-hanging fruit because it's kind of one of the first steps we can do. It's like one of the easiest ways, I think, to introduce more native plants into the landscape. And it's actually one of Maryland's largest crops is grass. We have 1.3 million acres of it. We have a lot of grass, and of course that has all sorts of impacts on the health of the Chesapeake Bay and on wildlife.
Can I
Yeah,
interrupt? I'm so
please, please.
sorry. It's a crop
Can we use
that's,
the mic, please? We're recording.
Oh, yes, we will get you a microphone.
Sí.
Okay.
you can save questions till the end.
Okay.
I think that would be easier with the mic. We'll just save
Okay,
questions.
do you mind holding that question?
Don't forget.
Okay. I think it was about what kind of crop. Yes, with corn and soy, like a crop, an agricultural crop. But you can ask further if you'd like at the end. Okay, so a lot of times the first advice somebody will get when they're asked, well, how do I start making changes in my yard is, well, can you shrink your lawn somehow? Because again, that's sort of a low-hanging fruit. And here are just some examples taken from Homegrown National Park. I added the red circles and everything, but the photos are from Homegrown National Park, just showing some kind of easy ways to remove some of that non-native plant material and get some natives in there. And so that first example, we kind of have this small little bed there in a sea of grass. And so that could easily be expanded. You could envision that. And then the second one, we have these three kind of soldierly specimens there. And you can imagine mowing around those would be a bit of a headache. And it would be so much easier and probably look better too if we just made that into one bed. If we combined it into one bed, it would be a lot easier to maintain as far as mowing goes. And again, great space to put native plants. The one on the bottom right, trees. We can, think about, instead of having grass underneath the trees, we can think about putting some soft, what Heather Holmes refers to as soft landings under those plants. And those are just as plant material so that birds and caterpillars, many of which need to fall to the ground to complete their life cycle, they have somewhere soft to land versus getting chewed up by the lawnmower. They have somewhere protected where they can land. And then in the bottom left, we have some kind of crummy looking grass. And we've all seen that before, right? There are just some patches where the grass is not happy. That's an excellent candidate for getting something in there other than grass. Putting native plants there would be a great option. So how do we do that? So this is something that Naomi back there and I've kind of been discussing is how do we go about removing grass in the easiest or most effective way so that we can bring in native plants. And one way is, this is a sod cutter. And we rented this from, I forgot the name of the equipment place, but you can rent them and go pick them up for the day. They're not terribly expensive. I'll show you what it looks like when you use it. So this is what the site looked like before we started. It was kind of hilly. You can see there are some trees there and some other plant material, but we wanted to put in some meadow sod here. And so we needed to remove the turf. And we used that sod cutter that I just showed you, and it was my kids did most of the work, my teenage kids. So it didn't require somebody super hefty or anything. They are just my kids like this big or so, and it took about 3 hours to remove the sod. And now, mind you, you do have a pile of heavy sod to deal with in the end, but it came up pretty quickly and easily. So that's one great way to do it. Another common way to do it is using cardboard. And you've probably heard this referred to as maybe the lasagna method, where you're basically trying to smother the turf. And so you will lay something down like cardboard and then heap a whole bunch of mulch on it. And so again, this is a super popular method. It can be effective, as you can see this researcher here lifting up the piece of cardboard. It did seem effective. This isn't one of my favorite methods, though, because there is some research that shows cardboard can be a little problematic. It can create anaerobic conditions. It can actually become hydrophobic, so water doesn't penetrate through. And so there are kind of some issues with cardboard at times. Also, a lot of cardboard, there was a study that recently came out from Denmark. They looked at recycled cardboard, and there's still microplastics in there. And so those forever chemicals are often found in the cardboard, and it's kind of hard to find virgin cardboard. So, it's just kind of adding more microplastics to the soil. So not my favorite method, but it can be effective. Here, this one is my preferred method. And this is just using arborist wood chips. These pictures were from Jimmy Rogers. He's a Maryland local. He does a lot of landscape work, and he's been experimenting with arborist wood chips. And so you can you can contact an arborist and say, I would like your wood chips. They have to dispose of them, so they're usually more than happy to unload them. They can deliver them to you. There are also organizations called Wood Chip, or Chip Drop, sorry, and you can just go online, ask for a dump, and it's a lot though. That's the only problem. So you have to either have a big space or be ready to share with your neighbors. So that could be a good option. And basically the idea is you are just going to smother the grass for a couple of months usually. And it requires layering like 12 to 18 inches of the chips. But within like 2 to 3 months, you can move it back and you can test to make sure that the grass has died. But usually by then it has. It's going to depend really on the temperature and the precipitation. That's going to affect the decomposition rates. But this can be a really effective way to kill your lawn, so then you're ready to bring native plants in. So I'm going to shift here to selecting plants, and because so far we've talked about the importance of native plants. We've talked about, okay, one way, if you have turf, for instance, and you want to bring native plants into your lawn, how to get rid of that turf first. But what do you do once you have the area prepped? How do you figure out what plants to use? I'm really excited to say there are a lot of new resources coming online, and they are broken down by ecoregion. And so we're focused on the materials that we've been working on are focused on the mountain region, Piedmont region, and the coastal plain ecoregions. Has anybody had a chance to see the Maryland Native Plant Guide yet? Raise your hand. I see a couple. Yay, that's good. Okay, so the Piedmont Guide is out now, and I have a copy here, and I'm happy to pass it around so if folks kind of want to take a look at it. In a minute, I'll kind of dive into some of the material that's the resources that are in each guide. The Coastal Plain Guide is going to be coming out in about a month or so, and the Mountain Region Guide will come out the following year. But you guys are mostly Piedmont. It looks like on the map, you have a tiny sliver of Coastal Plain, but again, mostly Piedmont. So I think this guide is going to be probably the most effective for this crowd. So what's in the guides? So there are a lot of, and as you'll see as you look through when it comes your way, there are a lot of educational articles to help gardeners, whether you're a new gardener or a super experienced gardener, to kind of get you to, to kind of think about gardening in a different way. Because for a long time, for many of us, there's been like this traditional, thinking about our yards and this sort of really neat and tidy look and kind of specimens versus a community of plants. So the articles in the guide really try to get folks to think about things more from an ecological perspective and a plant community perspective. And so, oh, I'm sorry, I think I accidentally hit the button. Sorry. Oh, what is going on there? Okay, sorry about that. Going trigger happy with this. So some of the topics that are covered in the guide are the idea of layering. And this is, again, traditional landscaping generally doesn't really think about plants in this way. Everything kind of has its proper place and things are very neat and tidy and orderly. The guide really gets you to think about things from how you would see, like in the beautiful landscape that you guys have here in Tacoma Park, you see things are very layered. You guys have it looks like a healthy understory here. You have your trees, you have an herbaceous layer. And so these are kind of all the layers that are mentioned in the guide, and the importance of each layer is discussed. And one of the things, the topics that I think is very helpful, especially for new gardeners, is to think about the ground layer, because that's the one we tend to forget about because we don't see it. We tend to see the focal species, the bright, colorful ones that are up above. But it's that ground layer, that matrix of like green mulch or living plants beneath that taller layer that plays a huge role in suppressing weeds. And also, they support a lot of wildlife too. So we tend to think of like sedges, our carex species, maybe not as supporting butterflies because they don't have colorful flowers, but actually they're a host plant for a lot of butterflies. And they're low growing, they're beautiful, and they fill in the area beneath so that weeds can't germinate. So they play a really important functional role. And the guide also really focuses on keystone species and the importance of how some plants really perform an outsized role in supporting wildlife. And for those of you who read Doug Tallamy's work, you know the oak, the mighty oak, is the one that kind of tops all the plants. But we have many keystone species that are equally important and that are larval hosts for many of our butterfly species and moths. And the guide also has, each guide will have over 300 featured species. So as a gardener, you might be thinking, well, how do I know what to plant? And so, after you assess your yard and kind of determine, well, what are your growing conditions, the guide will indicate what plants are well suited for those growing conditions that you have. And it will also contain a lot of information about what kind of wildlife does it support. And it's meant to also have be a conversational piece there about the plant itself. There's some interesting fun facts, and it will also indicate, well, where that plant would normally be found in the natural landscape. Another important article that's in the guide that's helpful for gardeners is, how do you know what you're buying? We've all seen plant tags before at nurseries, and sometimes they're confusing. Sometimes it's hard to tell, well, is this plant native, and is it native to where? Native to the US, native to Maryland, native to the Piedmont. And so this article, this is just a little snapshot of it, but there's a whole chart on that kind of breaks down what all these different terms mean, and helps you kind of how to read your plant tags with confidence and know, am I buying a cultivar? If you want a cultivar, that's okay, but is just knowing what you're buying. And then in the title of the talk, it mentioned climate resilient plants. And we know that's something that's definitely that gardeners are going to be facing. They're facing now and are going to continue facing in the future. So the guide also has information on how do we select climate smart plants. And so it points to this working group called RISC for short. They have been doing some modeling and trying to figure out what plant species are projected to do well into the future. And of course, it's just modeling, and modeling is always imperfect, but it's sort of the best data that we have so far. And so the QR code, and also in the article, it will direct you to the site where you can actually download plant list for each mid-Atlantic state. So there is a list for the state of Maryland that will show which species are projected to do well into the future. And the good news is that the overwhelming majority, over 90% on the list, are expected to do really well. And research on the ground by UMD a UMD professor, is showing that many of our plants are doing well even in urban settings, which tend to be warmer. So that's a good sign that many of our species here are going to continue to do well in the future. So if you are interested in, you can get a free copy online, a PDF of the guide, and I will share these slides as well, so you don't have to worry about using the QR code. But you can get a free copy online. We're hoping to make it available in Spanish in the near future. And we have a mobile-friendly version for those who like to look at plants while they're on the go. And then, of course, there's the hard copy that's being passed around here, and those are for sale. So you can purchase one at often extension events or online at the Maryland Native Plant Society. They sell it at their online bookstore. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. I'm super excited to also tell you about this new tool, which is it's an online app, and it's also mobile friendly. This is connected to the Maryland Native Plant Commercial List, and it's the same species that are in each of the 3 guides. So basically it's like a suite of products that all connect to each other. And so this plant app, it's in the beta mode, so please be mindful, it won't be perfect yet. And we wanted to release the beta mode, and we did that intentionally because we are viewing this as an iterative process. We want to keep getting feedback from folks, and we want to hear from folks like you. What would you like to see in this guide? Are there any extra tools that you would like added to make your journey as a gardener easier? And so there is a feedback, I don't think, oh yes, you can see it in the upper right-hand side. There's a feedback button, so I'll get a notice if you see something or you see an error or a bug, anything. We'd love to hear from you. We just added a translator on here, so it can be translated in Spanish. Sorry about that. Okay. It can be translated in Spanish. I am not a Spanish speaker, so I'm not 100% sure. We want to have folks test it and see how well is the translator working. And if there are other languages in your community that you think would be beneficial to add, we will certainly do our best to do that so we can try to serve all Marylanders. But in this app, you are asked to first figure out, well, where are you gardening? And if you don't know which ecoregion you're in, that's okay. You can just put your zip code in, and it will figure out which ecoregion you're in. And then it will pull up a group of plants that are from that ecoregion. And then you'll see something like on the right-hand side here, where it will have a photo, it'll have growing conditions, it'll have a lot of information about those plants. And there are all sorts of filters. So if you want to say, design a rain garden for a shady yard, and you're worried about deer, you can put all those filters in, and it will help select plants that meet those criteria. So, and I think the best thing about this tool what I think is most helpful is that, you've probably, many of you have gotten excited about a plant and thought, this is what I want for my yard, but then you can't find it anywhere. And that's really frustrating. So all the plants on here are commercially available in Maryland. And so we worked with the nurseries in Maryland and adjacent states to find out what they're selling. So I'll tell you in a minute about certified nurseries, but we got feedback about what nurseries are growing. So that's how we selected these 678 plants. If you recall, we have over 2,000 native species in Maryland, but as of now, 678 of those are being sold commercially. So once you've figured out, okay, these are the plants that I want, where do you buy them? That also has historically been challenging in Maryland, in the Mid-Atlantic in general. So the Maryland Department of Agriculture about last April, they launched the best native plant certification program. You might be familiar with their best, they have the best Maryland ice cream, best seafood. It's part of their best programming. And now native plants is part of that best programming. So they're starting to promote native plants, which is really exciting to have the Department of Ag behind this movement and supporting it. And so to date, we have over 30 certified nurseries. And we've just been running for about a year, so that's pretty exciting. And if you go to find this, you could use that QR code, but you could also just Google University of Maryland Extension or UME Maryland Native Plant Program, and you'll see all these resources. You'll see the plant finder, you'll see the guides, you'll see the commercial list, you'll see the certified nurseries and the map. It's all there. Just Google Extension Maryland Native Plant Program. Oh, and I should mention, sorry, this little label there is, this is something, once they're certified, they can use this on their products. They don't have to use it, it's just if they want to. But to qualify, at least 20% of the species that they carry need to be on the commercial list. And there are different tiers to the certification program. There's bronze, silver, and gold, depending on what percentage of native plants they have on the commercial list. So that's another way to kind of help you as consumers to know where can I go to get a nice diversity and quantity of native plants by going to the commercial list. And it's kind of all broken down. You'll see there's a table that says like how many species they carry, et cetera. It has a lot of information. And climate resilience planning, I meant to move that slide earlier, and I'm sorry I didn't. That was supposed to go before the risk slide, sorry. I wanted to mention one other resource for you guys in Montgomery County. Has anyone taken advantage of Rainscapes? When I Googled Tacoma Park, it's in Montgomery County.
Yeah,
No?
but we in Rockville, because we don't pay our taxes,
Oh.
we get a rebate, so we can take their workshops, but we can't get a rebate from them.
Oh, anyone in Tacoma Park?
No, yeah.
Tried to get them to do it.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go past this one. Okay. It's
Into the mic, can you indicate what they just said?
yes. So for folks who couldn't hear, that unfortunately Tacoma Park is part of Rockville. It's okay. Unfortunately, folks in Tacoma Park may not participate in the Montgomery County Rainscapes program. Yes, that's unfortunate. Okay, maybe that will change in future. Okay, so I'm sorry, we will pass that one. These are my references. I hope I'm doing well on time. Don't do that, thank you. Okay. Okay. And I have to, I'm required to show this one more time in case anybody came in late. And this is my contact information. If you have any questions or comments, or you would like to collaborate on anything related to native plants, please reach out to me. Here's my email. I'm based in Ellicott City at the SEMREC station, so not too far from you. I think about maybe 30 minutes from here or so. Yes, so it was great to talk with you this evening. I don't know if we have time for an activity. We're at, that clock is not right. We have one more, so we could maybe save this for the end. And questions, are we saving for after Liz goes?
So.
Okay.
That would make the most sense.
Okay,
Okay.
that sounds great. Do you turn this off, or? Okay, thank you. Sorry.
That was amazing. Thank you. Okay, that was amazing. Thank you very much. And I'm gonna let's just move into the next speaker. It's still not on. Hello, hello. Oh,
Yeah.
it's me. Okay. So let's just move into the next speaker. This is a relatively short presentation, but it just gives us a sense of what's happening very local here in Tacoma Park. And we're very fortunate to have Liz here with us. So Liz, have at it.
I think I need help. That's, yeah. And then what do I?
Yes, you will.
Oh, okay. Great, great.
Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Yeah. Yes, it works. Oh. Did I lose it? It's there. Okay. Is it okay now? I guess he controls it, so. Okay. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Yours is muted. You can use this one if you can.
Okay.
I think yours is muted.
Okay. Okay, great. So I'm aiming to spend like 5 minutes here. I'm just the after remarks to give you well, actually, since I'm standing here, Lisa set a high bar with working without notes, but now that I'm standing behind the mic, I can use my notes. So in order to keep my remarks brief, I'm just going to focus on doing one thing, which is to introduce you to the website for the Friends of Native Trees in Tacoma, where you can. Liz Kleemeyer. Okay, so here's our home page. This makes very clear that the purpose of the website is to provide information to people of how to make over their yard by removing invasive plants and planting native plants. The native trees in our name, Friends of Native Trees in Tacoma, is there because native trees are really big and important native plants, but we care just as much about what's planted underneath and around the trees. Our mission is to expand native habitat in Tacoma Park, particularly in private areas, in yards. I can give a statistic to match the ones that you were giving for Maryland. 57% of the land that's available for planting in Tacoma Park is around single-family homes, single-family homes, including duplexes. But so that's where the land is, in people's yards, and that's where we made our focus. So I'm just going to be showing you. Whoops. I'm just going to be showing you the most important information that's available on our website that pertains to what Lisa was talking about. I would encourage you to take out your phones and follow along there, while I'm doing this. So I'm going to go over 5 of our main pages. The white bar that you see here, that's what the menu will look like if you're looking at our website on a computer screen. If you're looking at it on your phone, as nobody seems to be doing, but it would look a little bit different, but it's the same menu items. Each of our menu items is acts as a landing page. You go from a menu item and then you branch out from there to all of the information. So I'd like to start by introducing you to two key items or sections on our welcome page. The first one is this. You scroll down, And clicking the green bar takes you to the presentation that Doug Tallamy made in this very room, on this very stage, talking about his first book. Very worthwhile to see, and it will bring the why that Lisa was explaining to you very quickly. You can also access a list of his books. All of those books are in the library. Then if you keep scrolling down the welcome page, you'll come to this section. I'll have the link to the recording here. I hope I get Lisa's slides, and my slides are already up there, so you can, it's a one-stop shopping for everything you need about this presentation this evening. Then second, going on to remove invasives. No, we don't have very much lawn in Tacoma Park. What we have instead is that people have planted invasives extensively. We have, our canopy cover is something like 60%. So to deal with all of that shade, people have gone out and gotten English ivy and vinca and Japanese pachysandra and liriope and anything else that's flown in. So we have a huge invasives problem in Tacoma Park. If you don't know what an invasive plant is, and it sounds like this is a sort of an above average group, but if you think an invasive plant is a weed, or if you think an invasive plant is an aggressive plant, or any non-native is invasive, then this is the most important section on our website for you. Invasive plants are non-native plants that are destroying, this is the key part, are destroying natural habitat. So it's not enough to plant natives in your yard, you also have to stop your yard sending out invasives to destroy Sligo Creek Park and adjoining areas. The second section on that web page that should be useful is a list of the most common invasives in Tacoma Park, and then you click down and find more information about how to identify them and how to remove them. On to planting native plants. So this bar, clicking on the green bar, will take you to a list of area nurseries. That includes the 30 nurseries that Lisa's program has identified as natives, but several other lists of native nurseries that have been put together. This section takes you to a whole bunch of different kinds of guides, one of which is a link to Lisa's Piedmont Region guidebook, so you can download it from here. You can also access the spreadsheet of commercial of native plants that are sold at all of those commercial native plant nurseries there. Plus, there's a searchable database where you can type in things like dry shade, and it will suggest, a list of native plants for you. And then finally, you can scroll down to this section and get a list, various lists of people to hire to help you not only to design a garden and install a garden, but to remove invasive plants. I mean, gardeners, as you seem to be mostly gardeners, you may prefer to do your own planting, but nobody likes removing invasives. The important thing is to get them gone, so hire somebody. I'm only going to point to one thing on this page, and that's this Tacoma Natives. This is our monthly blog, and the topics sometimes are about native plants or particular combinations of native plants that Tacoma Parkers have found have done very well. So that, in addition to the selection guides, may help you decide what to put in your yard. And then finally, on the final page, you can subscribe to Font. You'll get a few emails a month, such as lists of new things on the website. You'll also be invited to participate in our twice a year native plant sale, which is definitely the cheapest way you're going to get access to native plants delivered to Tacoma Park. And sometimes we do hold events and you'll be invited to those. So I encourage you to visit Font.
Well, thank you. Amazing information. We do have time for questions, so maybe the speakers can come up here too, and we'll just see who. Do we have any questions? Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Hold on.
hold on. We have to give you the mic.
I apologize for my earlier impulsive outburst. This crop in Maryland of grass, is this like growing sod to sell to golf courses and stuff? Wow. Huh. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
I could add a little, I don't know if I'm on or not.
Do you want to come up here and talk?
Okay. I could just add a little bit to that. You may know that Evan Glass and Kate Stewart introduced legislation in Montgomery County that would require new developments to have some large percentage of native plants planted, as opposed to being, up to the developers what to do. I think it was something like 50%, and it never made it out of committee because of the resistance from the sod growers. Pretty much stopped it in its tracks.
May I make a comment?
Yeah.
Just to tag on to, so here's my dream, is that it's kind of related to that, is that I think it'd be really neat for new developments if, when you buy a home, often you have choices, right? Oh, do you want to upgrade the appliances or the, sorry. Or you want to upgrade the siding or what have you. Why not landscapes? Why couldn't we have, you want a native landscape? Okay, that's an upgrade. And you just kind of fold it into all those other things and, it's included. But I think that'd be really neat to have, so if anyone here is a developer, a developer, I would love to talk with them. Because we could make it a study and kind of have like 3 options and find out like what's the sweet spot, what percentage of natives could we get in there, and what kind of interest would there be from home buyers?
Hello. This question is, Lisa, I think this question's for you. You showed a slide of a new app that is coming out by the, but I looked for it with all the different words that you had on that slide and I couldn't find it. What's the app called?
It's called the Native Plant Tool Finder. So if you just do UMD or UME, maybe for Google you'd need to do, I think it just kind of comes up now when I search it on my own computer from my past searches, but UMD extension and then Maryland Native Plant Program, that will be a safe way. You'll get to all the information that was covered tonight. Okay. Please let me know if you still don't see it.
It's not in the App Store. That's all on the Apple App Store.
Oh, no, it's not in the Apple App Store because you don't download it or anything. It's just on, I don't know what it's on. I'm not techie. I don't know. It's just there. It's on the website. Yeah. Okay.
Lisa, before you leave the mic, I was really appreciating how you frame things in plant communities and the different layers. And are the plants suggested in the guide, like the Piedmont guide? Do they break it down according to these different layers? Like I want to find out what more ground layers I can do.
Yes.
You mentioned sedges, but I don't know what else.
Yeah, we have multiple lists that aren't just lists. They have like an intro and text to go with it. But yes, we do have a whole section on ground covers, and soft landings are discussed as well. Yeah.
Thanks for this talk. It was really helpful. Do any of these resources, since I really haven't had time to look at them all while I've been listening to you, have, so if I have plant X that's not native, maybe invasive, do any of these resources have a suggestion for what I could replace it with that would be similar?
Yes. So,
Which one would I go to first?
yeah, so the Piedmont Guide has, there's an article about invasive plants and tagging onto it listed how problematic how much they're just wreaking havoc on our natural systems. But yes, there's a nice handy table that talks about the most common invasives and some native alternatives.
So I'm probably a little confused by some of the terminology. Like I've been digging up white snake root like crazy, even though it's native, because in my picture, this app, it said that it's considered a weed by gardeners. So I guess I don't know what the difference is and what I should be doing.
I would say, so I just heard, I sat in on a class. It was Ben, I'm not sure if I'm going to say his last name right, Vogt, V-O-G-T. It was really good. It was about sociability, native plants. And, I think it depends. I can see why that was discussed in the class, that sometimes, some native plants are very exuberant, if you will. Or gregarious was the word that he used. And if you have a small space, maybe you don't want a gregarious species there. So I could see why, in some instances you might say, well, that's not the right spot for that plant. But I would say, they can make wonderful ground covers, and it just depends on what your goal is. I would definitely not classify it as a weed. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to relate an anecdote and then ask for your opinion on this. I can't hear myself. So I am an occasional volunteer for Liz at Fawn. Thank you, Liz, for all the work that you do, and I appreciate Lisa. I live in a neighborhood in Silver Spring that's just outside Tacoma Park city limits, but we have exactly the same kind of ecosystem. And we've had a lot of oak tree deaths in the past 5 years or so. And a couple years ago, our community association tried to make an arrangement with a new program sponsored by Casey Trees, the nonprofit that's trying to restore the Washington, D.C. area tree canopy. And 22 households in our neighborhood signed up to participate in a program called Community Tree Planting that they were just rolling out, not for municipalities, but for neighborhoods. If you got at least 10 private homeowners, they would arrange for at-cost planting and support for the first year or two. And they've had to curtail that program because of a lack of funding filtering down from the national government down to the state government. So my question is, state government funding, where are we with that? Because it's having an impact on a private nonprofit that would have done some of this work on behalf of our community, but now can't.
There are so many free tree programs in Maryland. There's and Montgomery County has a free. I don't know that they're going to do what you're doing, but you can get free. Nobody should pay for trees in this area. They are dying to give away trees, and there are several organizations that have grants that would work with you to do that. I can share some, but there's so many. Yeah, but no, they'll work. I work with congregations, and they're putting in 50 free trees. I think they would do that easily for a neighborhood, but they prioritize disadvantage, and that may be not work.
Thank you. That's not my question. Yeah. Thank you. That's very helpful, but that wasn't my question. My question was really about state funding for programs like what you're doing.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Lisa. Here, take this one.
Testing? Okay. I am not aware of any state-funded programs right now, and like you pointed out, the funding situation looks a little gloomy right now. Liz, do you know of any? No. Okay. I think that does sound like a wonderful. I love that they would come and not only plant it but care for it for a year after, when it's most vulnerable, that first year or so. So I know Maryland Department of Ag is interested in like doing some type of a bounty program like other states have done, like the buy back a Bradbury, pear tree. And we'll give you a native. We'll remove that tree, give you a native. So there's definitely interest in that. I just don't think the funding is there at the moment.
Related to that, why is Tacoma Park excluded from the Rain Gardens program?
Because we keep a certain percentage of our taxes for the environment, and the city uses that money for environmental projects in Tacoma Park. So we would have to give more of our taxes to them in order to be, and Rockville does the same, and I believe Gaithersburg does the same as well. So it's that we're not paying our taxes into the pot. Instead, we're keeping that money and doing things like, sometimes you'll see that there'll have been a right-of-way access has been redone with native plantings and more drainage to stop water flow. That would be the kind of thing that would be paid for with that.
Casey was also, you could sign up on the Tacoma Park website, which I did, and I never got an email from you. Oh, okay.
So the initial funding ended. They spent $600,000 in 4 or 5 years, and then the city council has given them an additional, I don't know how much, to extend that program for 1 year. So it's out, an RFP, a request for proposals, is out. My question to you for after time, is there any way that we can get some native tree nurseries, or a bid on that proposal? But they've made it, the way the city wrote the contract, it's a very demanding contract, and it will be, it's made for Casey trees, but whether smaller local native plant nurseries will be able to do.
Yeah, if you would share the RFP,
Yeah,
I would be
love
happy to share
Yeah.
with the nurseries. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the very good presentations. We moved to Tacoma Park about 3 years ago, and the house that we bought has a ton of bamboo that we've been trying to remove. So I guess the question to you is, are you aware of any resources to help remove bamboo, or is this just kind of something that we're going to have to figure out on our own? And are there any rules in the works about planting bamboo and restricting the use of bamboo?
In Tacoma Park, you're required, so the onus is all on you. And the city doesn't do anything about the bamboo that's growing on city land. So it's definitely not fair. But the ordinance says that you have to keep bamboo 6 feet back from the property line and install a barrier. Of course, that only comes into play if a neighbor complains about you, which most Tacoma Park neighbors won't do. In terms of getting rid of it, this is a great time to hire somebody. The one person I've known that's done it successfully hired, I think it's called Merrifield Nurseries in Virginia, and they came in with a backhoe and did it. So that's the best way. Hiring people to dig it out is really expensive. It's probably, I'm kind of guessing, please go to we do have a link to bamboo on that common Tacoma Park invasives. I'm just not quite 100% sure if I remember what it says, but it's probably some combination. If you don't have a backhoe and a professional crew, then it's probably some combination of digging it out and using an herbicide to kill the roots.
Lisa, do you have something you'd like to add? Sure. Thank you. Yes, it does sound like a big task, but a worthy one, a noble one. Extension would probably also be a really good source for finding ways to deal with it. In addition to Merrifield, there's an organization called Chesapeake Bay Landscape Professionals. So it's CB as in Bravo, LP as in Paul.org. And they are trained professionals who they're trained to work with native landscapes and to remove invasives. Now, they all have different skill sets, but that might be another if you're looking for someone even closer in Maryland. And just one other thing to mention, it doesn't necessarily help exactly with your situation because the bamboo's already there, you're not buying it. But thankfully, recent legislation is looking at banning first assessing and then banning when appropriate invasive plants that are sold by the horticultural trade, and bamboo was recently put on that list. So at least hopefully that won't be a problem going forward, but they do have a phase out period. And I can't remember offhand if bamboo, how long their phase out period, where it is as far as the phase out period goes.
I think there was okay.
Just to finish up, I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same thing, but on that higher help, there is a list of professionals that have completed the Chesapeake professionals, training. So that's one of the lists of professionals that's on there.
Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll have to wrap up, but please,
I'm going to use development in a different form. In a highly developed ecosystem, you don't just find hodgepodges of native plants, you find native plant communities. So I wasn't sure when you used the word communities of plants, if you were using it in that ecosystem sense, and if there's list available through Extension Service of what the typical native Maryland plant communities would be rather than just individual plants. Thank you.
Yes. So that's a great question. As I was kind of referring to it as, thinking, yes, you're right. In the very highly developed landscapes, we're kind of trying to mimic those natural plant communities that you might see. And so they would probably be a little imperfect, but they can still mimic and still function as a natural community. But in answer to your question about where, yes, the DNR, Maryland DNR, the Natural Heritage Program, has a document that was developed 2016, and it's called Natural Communities of Maryland, or something close to that. But it does exactly that. It'll tell you different parts of Maryland and what plants would naturally be found together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to go back to the question about requiring native plants, and I didn't realize that they had introduced that legislation. But what about requiring the city of Tacoma Park? Have anybody worked on that idea, just in any public spaces, to only landscape with native plants, like the library when they redid it? That could have been a meadow. I wonder if that is something that's been explored. I know it can be tricky in bigger areas, but I wonder, I think DC, actually, you see it all over. DC required a lot of native plants to be used.
I'm not aware of anybody having worked on that. The present person in charge of vegetation, Anna Mishi John, is very devoted to native plants, and so she's been doing that a lot on her own. But whether what jurisdiction she had over the new library space, I don't know. Font's origin story is struggling to get the city to adopt a policy of focusing on native trees, and hence our name. And that was that was successful in the sense that it is now a policy that they're supposed to focus on native trees. But then what we discovered is that it was left up to the urban foresters as to how do you define native. And so we spent the subsequent 6 years trying to negotiate it. Just 2 weeks ago, we sent in, after intense emails since September and a meeting on April 7th, we sent to the city manager a draft of saying, okay, how about this? He suggested that we put it in writing, and we did send it a draft, but we have yet to hear and yet to know what the reaction will be to that. Our approach is that we should define native as at least kind of Maryland and maybe some surrounding states. The Piedmont and coastal provinces in New Jersey down to Virginia should be, plus all of Maryland, should be what we call native trees for the purpose of planting in Tacoma Park. But whether that will go through is up in the air.
Any last questions? I have one. Okay.
This is, I guess, like a local political question. I'm a little, I guess I'm still a little confused about Tacoma Park. It sounds like almost being separate from Montgomery County, even though you're part of Montgomery County. Because Montgomery County, like, I wonder if apart from the Rainscapes program, because Montgomery County, I don't know if they finalized their plan, but they do have native plant requirements. And I don't know if that would apply to Tacoma Park, though. And they also were dealing with the how do you define what is native, and it was recommended that they actually use the Maryland commercial list.
I recommended that to them.
And you recommended that too. Awesome. So it came from
Yeah.
multiple sources.
Yeah.
So do you guys work at all with Montgomery County, or are you totally separate?
Well, I think we're talking about the same thing. That was the legislation in Montgomery County that never made it out of committee because of the sod growers' resistance. And I think that, I assume that was a weakness in how it was written, because they didn't say anything about what percentage, how you deal with turf grass in talking about, whatever percentages they put in it. It was something like 50%. So if that had gone through, yes, it would have applied to Tacoma Park. But we are a city. We are our own municipality, and we have our own tree ordinance, and we have certain programs. We have our own library. Okay.
Well, I'm glad we got into some of that stuff that's near and dear, and it's relevant to policy and city council matters. So I'm glad we covered that. There was a lot of good information here in both of these presentations, and I want to thank you so much. Along with the speakers, I want to thank the organizers and the city technical support team and all of you who came out and listened and had questions and raised your, whatever was on your mind. It was just great. Let's see, please watch for future events, which will be announced on our sustainability webpage on the City of Tacoma Park website and on a neighborhood listserv near you. If you signed in over there, we'll be sure to incorporate that into, who knows, maybe you'll all of a sudden get an invitation to be part of the Tacoma Park sustainability website. I don't know, but somehow we'll be able to reach out to you. And thank you very much.